Johnny here for Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, first of all, we're going to be talking about breaking news on the Ford Bronco. And that's going to be in regard to the picture that you see right here. We're also going to be talking about rusty diffs. Some people are talking about canceling their Bronco order because of an F-150, a couple F-150s photoed with a rusty diff. So we'll jump into a discussion about that and see if that's something that makes any sense at all. And we're going to be talking about some breaking news on Bronco and dealer production times. So I've got some news from my local dealer all about give us a good idea about Bronco production time. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to put the pedal to the metal and see what we can root out here. More cars, more power. That's the whole point of all this. Learn a bit more and get a bit more. And hopefully it's not just about more cars, it's about more power too. Okay, so let's jump right in. Ford Authority. I'm sorry, in my last video, I did not put the best photo, and it might have caused some confusion because the spied photo could have been an F-150, it could have been a Ranger. It was a bit far to tell, but there's the photo from Ford Authority. That's showing us what they strongly believe and what I also believe. Maybe we're wrong, and put it in the comments section, but we believe that's an F-150 Raptor with what is most certainly the Warthog Bronco. And as you can see, that Bronco Warthog is wide. And that's because it's got a widened chassis. And that's why in my last video, if you want to watch it and see what I have to say about that, because I really go into depth, and here I'm only going to skim the surface. That's why I'm thinking that a 3.5 liter EcoBoost could definitely fit into the Bronco, and they have fitted it to the Ford Ranger's race, the race Ranger, the one they're using for racing. It's got a 3.5 liter EcoBoost. Now, I'm not going to back down. The 3.5 liter EcoBoost is an awesome engine. It's on to its third generation, so it's not some motor from 2011. It's not dated. It's not some old dinosaur that should, or an old pony or an old horse that should be thrown out to pasture. It's prime, and it's in its prime, and that's because it's gotten 3 overhauls. It's on generation 3. Now for just one example, it's got port injection and direct injection. And that's not at all how the injection system started off back in 2011. So with time, motors get perfected. And I love the 3.5 liter EcoBoost because being that it's on its 3rd generation, it is perfected. But you know what? Through the comments section, I have been convinced the 3 liter from the Ford Explorer making 400 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque would be a really good option. And I'm happy someone pointed it out in the comments section that motor can be modified to easily produce, 500 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. So the 3 liter, yes, it is less of a dinosaur, we could say, and I'm really hoping that, Ford does go throw something back at the TRX, because you see Dodge, they're really coming after Ford. They've got their T-Rex eating the Raptor, and I love it. I love the fact that there's this competition going on. That's good for us, the consumer. Get into a horsepower war. Get into this great debate and fight over what's better, a big old V8 or more modern 6-cylinder with twin turbos. Get into it. Show us which one's better, because the competition will only bring out a better product. This is great news for us, and we can't take it as us versus them. It's all for us in the end, and it's Ford being challenged is only going to bring us better Broncos. So I'm really excited. I'm happy Dodge went for the throat and got this peeing contest started. So Ford's definitely going to answer, and they're going to have a great answer to it, and that's going to be the Warthog. So I'll keep you updated on the Warthog. And now on to more pressing issues. I'm going to quickly, before I get into the news about production dates, and that is breaking news that I want to share with you. I just want to quickly touch on this whole rusty diff situation. So there's a few YouTubers that have been showing their F-150 with a rusty diff, and it's causing some Bronco fans to, question if they should, cancel their order. Well, speaking about canceled orders, because of all the delays that have happened, some people have canceled their orders, and Ford isn't telling us exactly what percentage of reservation holders have canceled their orders, but that's, if you haven't ordered your Bronco, that's good news for you. That means there's a potential space. Dealers all get promised a certain amount of allocations. That's a number of Broncos that will be built for them. And if that doesn't get filled up with a reservation holder because they cancel, good news for you, you're gonna get a Bronco for 2021. Now, of course, that will depend on how you equip it. And I do have a video that, basically very plainly states, do not take this option if you want an earlier arrival of Bronco, and do not take, for example, if you ask for, a Sasquatch manual, so it'd be a 2.3, you're not going to get that until 2022. And there's other options that will either be late delivery 2021 or force your Bronco to be built for 2022. I have a video for that, and I'll let you, watch that if that interests you. For now, I want to focus on the breaking news. So on to the breaking news. Sorry, just to conclude about the whole rusty diff thing, other than the fact that, hey, it's great if people cancel, that makes more Broncos for people that really want a Bronco and aren't, scared of a little bit bad news. I'd even argue that the whole rusty diff thing is not really all that bad news. It probably doesn't even affect Bronco owners, because if you recall, Broncos are built, the whole frame is built off a Ranger. And the photos at the very beginning of the video, I didn't describe it, but I'm going to put it out pretty clearly right now. That was a photo of Rangers that have sat out all winter at a dealer, and all those diffs have no issues. The reason for that is those diffs are covered. And I also took photos. Some of those photos too were photos of F-150s. I went across and looked at all the F-150s. And there was one F-150 that had what was either mud or maybe a bit of rust that had sort of dripped down on the diff. But if you've seen the F-150 video where the diff is really rusted, I'd say that's probably a situation where Ford received these differentials, these axles from whichever manufacturer's building it for them, and there's just some in that batch that weren't covered. Now, this isn't the end of the world, because the differentials are really thick steel. It's never going to rust through. Does it look good? Well, if you look under your truck, no, it doesn't look the best. But really, how many of us look under our truck on a regular basis? Now, if you're off-roading and you're going to be kind of jacked up at different angles, maybe you will notice your axle and your diff more. But is this going to cause issues other than visual? No, it's not going to cause issues. I don't think it'll ever rust through. I'm up here in an area that has a lot of salt on the roads, and at my dealer, those F-150s get tested in the salt. And there was one, like I said, that had a little bit of either mud or a little bit of rust dripping, but it's not an issue for mechanical problems. And from what I saw from the YouTube video where they're showing those diffs, that's not going to be an issue for mechanical issues either. But it doesn't look great. But anyways, back to the Rangers. All the Rangers had perfectly clean diffs, looking great, even though they've been exposed to salt with the road tests. So I really don't think the Bronco's going to have any issue whatsoever, either obviously not mechanically, and visually, I don't think so either. Now, let's jump into the last part of this video, and that's probably the most important part, and that's about talking about what's going on for production. So for production, quick little reminder, there are things that are going to delay your order, such as a Sasquatch package, a 2.7 liter engine, a black top, asking for both soft top and hard top on the 4-door model. So a lot of things that will give you a later date or even push you to 2022. But good news on production. at least in my region and dealers of my region will have up to one no sale, so what I like to call a show Bronco, being built in May, leading me to believe that the very first customers' Broncos will be built in, either anywhere from mid-May to, some point in June, for arrival in either June or July. Now, that's going to depend on transport time, and transport time will depend greatly based on how far one is from the factory, how far your local dealer is from the factory, how many trains is it going to have to be transferred between, and whatnot. So take note, some regions may be deemed a higher priority than my region and could be having their show Broncos built in April. But just to be very clear, my region's one and only show Bronco is going to be built in May, and we don't know if it's going to be early May, mid-May, or late May, but we were told we'll have one Bronco built and it will be in May. Now, some regions that are a higher priority, I could believe and definitely speculate that they'd have theirs built in April. Now, this would make sense, being that, there's kind of this leak that the factory would start, would get turned on to production for March 28th. So maybe for high priority regions, there are 1, 2, or 3 show Broncos are going to be built in the month of April. Now those show Broncos are going to go into showrooms. Some dealers will let you take them out and drive them. So I'm thinking touring Broncos or show Broncos for journalists are definitely going to be built in April. Now, what exactly do I mean by full journalist review Broncos, you might ask? Well, thus far, journalists have been doing walkarounds. And remember when they could review them, but the models, they didn't even have a drivetrain in them. That was the very first stage. And they have been getting driven by professional drivers for the most part, or in some more recent rare cases, journalists have been allowed to drive them on a closed, predetermined course. So I would argue that the next step to follow will be that journalists will have full unsupervised access to the Broncos to drive them on the roads they want, where they want, and how they want. But of course, Ford does not just throw the keys to journalists and say, do as you please with the model when it's a pre-production or a prototype. So April is looking like the month that the factory line will be building these Broncos. Now, will April be a month for dealer no sale demos that exist to help the dealer show the Bronco and give test drives and then sell and put in Bronco orders? Well, for dealers that have had all their allocations used up by reservation holders, what is the point? And this situation applies to many dealers. So, simply put, I think March 28th to at least mid-May, we can expect the factory to be building show Broncos. With the information that my local dealer is having its show Bronco built in May, and that it will be its only Bronco built in May, I can deduct that there's a high probability that for the most part, our ordered Broncos will be built as early as mid-May, but for many the process will start in June. Now, what difference will there be for reservation holders versus those that have gotten or will attain a remaining dealer allocation? Well, stay tuned for part 2 of this breaking news. To help you stay up to date with news and car reviews, like and hit the subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. And if you don't like this video, make sure we really know how you feel by hitting the thumbs down button twice. And before concluding, I really want to give a huge shout out and thank you to people who have been supporting this channel by putting in comments, by asking really good questions, or putting in really good facts. It helps me make either correct my errors or make more content. So really thank you for getting engaged, and to those that have subscribed, I really appreciate it. Helps out a lot, and I do enjoy putting out the news, on mostly Broncos really, and doing reviews on different models. So hopefully you guys are finding this interesting, and please do not shy away from throwing in helpful comments, even when it's more critical, but telling me that my mic isn't working right, is pretty helpful, and I do try to correct these things, and I do try to reply to all the appropriate comments. So thank you very much for getting involved. Thank you for being a part of this and letting me enjoy this process. So see you next time in the next video. I will be covering the difference between reservation holders and people who got a dealer allocation. And you'd think in every single circumstance a reservation holder will get their vehicle first, but that isn't necessarily the case. So I've got some interesting stuff to say on that, or at least I hope you find it interesting. And as promised in the last video, I will be coming out with a Bronco Sport video shortly. Have a good weekend and enjoy.